Hello there and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to talk about patch 11.17 Legacy of Arathor, and in this video we're going to go through everything that is coming in this brand new patch of World of Warcraft. There is a ton of stuff here, including some new quest lines, some updates to Timewalking, a new feature called Lorewalking, new UI options, just tons and tons of things coming in this patch. But before we jump into that, guys, I do want to let you know that I am streaming on twitch.tv/MrGM. If you want to check me out streaming World of Warcraft 11.17, 11.12 PTR, over on twitch.tv/MrGM. Right, so yes, patch 11.17 is launching on June 17th in the NA region and June 18th in the EU. Now, luckily, this patch is not as time-gated as 11.15, as there is pretty much all the features coming on day one. I think there's a couple of different events which are happening after the patch, but we'll go through that in this video. So let's just jump into some of the features here, as there is a lot to go through. So kind of the main feature here and the namesake of this patch is a brand new campaign in Arathi Highlands. Now, this is a 2-chapter questline taking place in the Arathi Highlands, featuring Faerun and Danath. This is kind of a in-game sequel to the 5-part audiobook Heartlands, so if you've listened to that, this is kind of a in-game kind of progression of that story. Completing this questline will give you the Stromgarde Tabard for the Alliance and the Maghar Tabard for the Horde, and also you will receive a shoulder transmog inspired by Faerun's shoulders, which is really cool, and that's available for all armor types. But this is a really cool questline, definitely worth doing, and we'll be there on day one of 11.17. The next feature coming in patch 11.17 is a new system called Lorewalking. This is a new repeatable questing experience available from level 10 to 80. This is a really interesting system where you can relive some of the big stories of World of Warcraft's past, and hopefully they will add more in the future. The way to play through these stories is to speak to Lorewalker Cho, who is situated in Stormwind, Orgrimmar, and Dornagol. This is actually marked on the map as well. As of 11.17, there are 3 storylines you can play through, one with the Ethereals, one for Xal'atath, and one for Arthas. There is also an extra one in the game files for elves, like Blood Elves and Void Elves and things like that, but that is not available. I'd imagine that's going to come in a little bit later towards the pre-patch of midnight. Now, what's really cool about this is when you're playing through these stories, it kind of plays out like a scenario. You're playing different quests from the past and some new quests as well, which is cool, and you're able to leave whenever you like and return to that same point as long as you don't start another Lorewalking campaign. And one of my favorite features of this is that you can actually pause it and ask Cho questions regarding what is going on with the storyline if you didn't quite understand what was going on. So really cool feature. It's not very good XP for leveling, but it is a very fun experience and certainly worth doing, as there is some rewards for completing these storylines as well. So kind of as you go through and complete the quest, you will be getting some leveling gear from a box. If you're max level, you will also be getting some Weathered Crests and Valor Stones, which is always helpful, but there is final rewards for completing an entire storyline. For the Ethereals, you'll get the Koresh Memory Crystal. This will transform you into an Ethereal or Broker for 10 minutes with a 30-minute cooldown. For Xal'atath, you'll get the Echo of Xal'atath Blade of the Black Empire, and this is an hour-long buff with no cooldown, which actually has Xal'atath whispering to you at random. So if you're a Shadow Priest, you probably remember that, but that's for everybody. And then completing the Arthas storyline will give you the Royal Visage toy. This will turn you into the Ghost of Arthas for 5 minutes with a 30-minute cooldown. So Lorewalking, a really fun feature to kind of play through old stories of World of Warcraft in a new way. I'm hoping they do add a ton of new stories in the future, as this is a really fun way to experience it and kind of give you extra context to things you might not have picked up when you did the quest back in the day. Another thing coming in 11.17 are some pretty major updates to delves. So the first update is a new type of delve called a Overcharged Delve. So once a day, 2 delves will become overcharged. This normally corresponds with the bountiful delve of the day, so 2 birds, 1 stone sort of thing. When these delves are overcharged, it brings in a new affix of sorts, which puts electric puddles around the delve, which if you walk into them, it gives you a stun, which is a little bit annoying, but not too bad. There's also extra NPCs around the delve as well. You can definitely tell that a delve is overcharged once you're inside it. Now, the good thing about overcharged delves is they're not actually consumed on completion. However, there's not really any extra rewards from the end of them or anything like that, but we'll get into why you want to be doing overcharged delves in a second. Now, not all delves will become overcharged though. There is only 6 delves which are going to be in the kind of overcharged pool. That is the Kriegsfall's Rest, the Skittering Breach, the Spiral Weave, the Nightfall Sanctum, Fungal Folly, and Side Street Sluice. So basically, just keep an eye on your map for the delve with like the electricity coming out of it. Another feature related to overcharged delves is a new belt. This is the Durable Information Securing Container, or the Titan Disc Belt, and this is kind of a new borrowed power system similar to your Circe Circlet from 11.07, but this is a belt. To unlock this belt, it's super easy. It's just a quest from Dagran in Dornagol, and which kind of teaches you all about Overcharged Delves. The belt's base item level is 684 and can be upgraded. It also does have your primary stat and stamina, as well as one socket by default, which is actually pretty good. And also, once it has been unlocked, your ults can just unlock it through one very quick quest, which is nice. Now, the unique thing about this belt is that it has specific powers. These powers are changed out of combat by using the on use on the belt, and the unlocks for these are account-wide, and the majority of them do come from just the end of delves. What's really nice about it is that they don't have to be overcharged for them to drop, so you can just go and do a delve on tier 1, get the power, and that's unlocked across your account. There are various different powers which do different things, and I would imagine all of these will be simmed, and you'll find out your best power once the patch launches. To upgrade the belt, there will be a weekly quest to kill NPCs inside Overcharged Delves. This could be done on a tier 1, which is super nice, and the max item level of this new belt is 694 as of PTR, and it will take you about 3 or 4 weeks to get there from the looks of things on PTR. So not too bad at all, and a very, very powerful belt. Another system on top of the belt and on top of Overcharged Delves is the Overcharged Titan console. Now, you unlock this during the Dagran questline, and this is a new console inside Overcharged Delves at the start. This has a new talent tree with 10 nodes in total, which give you powers inside Overcharged Delves, like increased stats or procs and things like that. To unlock the powers, you're going to need 100 shards, and these shards drop from Overcharged Delves. Doesn't seem like there's any difference between tier 1 and tier 8. You can just do these in tier 1 delves, which will be very, very quick. The unlocks for this are account-wide, which is great, and there doesn't seem to be any time gating on this system as of PTR. Completing this tree will give you a new achievement called the Titan Console Overcharge, which will give you a brand new mount called the OC91 Chariot mount, which is a recolor of the Season 1 KSM mount with electricity around it. There's also another achievement linked to Overcharged Delves to complete 4 out of 6 of them, and this will give you the Redeployment module, which is a new Hearthstone toy. Overall, Overcharged Delves are okay. It's a really nice that you can do all the unlocks and upgrades and everything like that through tier 1, so there is no real difficulty to it. So if you do just want to kind of slam it out super quick, you could just do all of this on a tier 1 delve, which is nice. Also coming in 11.17 are some new UI options, the Combat Assistant and the Single Button Assistant. You may have seen this on social media. So let's start by talking about the Combat Assistant. This is a built-in version of the Hakili add-on. If you're not familiar with that, essentially what this does is it highlights abilities on your action bar to use in your rotation, and this will change depending if you're single target or AoE. This is obviously designed for people who aren't super familiar with their class or just want to learn a little bit more about it. So a very, very helpful thing, which really just was an add-on and is being built into the game. The other thing is the Single Button Assistant. So this is actually a new button which can be found in your spellbook. Putting this on your bar and pressing it will essentially just do your DPS rotation. It won't do any healing or tanking or anything like that, but there is a GCD penalty in doing this, so this is not going to be the most optimal way to play, but essentially this is going to play out your damaging rotation depending whether or not you're single target or AoE. Now, this is designed as an accessibility feature and not something that everyone should be using, really. So the assisted highlight modes and Single Button Assistant won't do certain things, like they're not going to move your character around the world or suggest or use any mobility buttons like blink, sprint, or heroic leap. It's not going to change targets for you, so if your target dies, you're going to want to move targets. It's not going to use any major cooldowns like Avenging Wrath, Bladestorm, or Ascendance, so you will have to still put those on your bar if you are using the single button. It's not going to interrupt or use any crowd control. It's definitely not going to heal you if you're low health or use any defensive abilities, and it won't use any potions, trinkets, or trade skill items or any similar items in your inventory. The single button is literally just going to do your damaging abilities in a sequence, so this is not going to be like the most optimal thing in the world. Maybe it is if you're really, really bad at the game, but this is essentially just going to be mostly for accessibility reasons or if you just don't know your class or anything like that. So yeah, that is coming in 11.17. Also in this patch are some pretty major updates to Timewalking, the first being the introduction of Battle for Azeroth Timewalking. Finally, BFA Timewalking is coming. Of course, while this is active, reputation gains from combat and quests in BFA will be increased by 50%, so much like at every other Timewalking event. There are 6 dungeons and no raid included in the Battle for Azeroth Timewalking pool. These dungeons are Atul Dazar, Freehold, King's Rest, Shrine of the Storm, Temple of Saphralis, and Waycrest Manor. These dungeons will drop adventurer gear, which is essentially heroic dungeon gear, and this is actually a change which is happening across the board for all Timewalking dungeons, as it was previously Explorer gear, but they are making Timewalking dungeons slightly more difficult. I tested this, and it really is, like, you can't tell, to be honest, but yeah, they are making them slightly harder, but you are getting a slightly better reward, I guess. And much like every other Timewalking event, there's a brand new vendor. This includes some recolors and some unique unused items from BFA, which is great, and 2 new mounts. You have the Reigns of the Ivory Savage Mane and the Reigns of the Moonlit Nightsaber, and both of these mounts actually have unique mount-up animations, which is actually really cool. But overall, Battle for Azeroth Timewalking, pretty much what you'd expect. Unfortunately, no raid for any of the Timewalkings coming in 11.17, but there is Turbulent Timeways. Turbulent Timeways is returning in 11.17 and will start on June 17th or 18th, depending on your region, and run until August 5th. It is going to be a 6-week event. It begins with Battle for Azeroth Timewalking, going into Mists of Pandaria, Burning Crusade, Warlords of Draenor, Legion, and then finishing with Battle for Azeroth. Doesn't seem like any other major changes to this event from previous Turbulent Timeways. However, there is a new achievement to gain the Master of the Timeways buff for 5 weeks, and the reward for this is the Chrono Corsair Skyriding mount. So yeah, our captain is finally a mount, and this is the reward from Turbulent Timeways 3, which starts on patch day. Let's get into a few minor things before we get into some time-limited events. So there's actually a new spell coming for all races and classes, and this is a new spell called Recuperate. Pressing this button will restore 50% of your health over 10 seconds while out of combat, and there is no cooldown on this. This is essentially a self-heal for everybody. It spawns a little campfire, and it doesn't let you do the ability again until the campfire's gone, but you can just move out and do it again, so that, yeah, there is literally no cooldown on this. So this is going to be super helpful. This will be on all of your characters by default as of 11.17, so you don't have to go learn it or do a quest or anything. This will literally just be on all your characters and any future characters from the patch launch. There's also a new glyph coming for hunters. This is the Glyph of Strix. This is a glyph which will change the appearance of your spotting eagle to an owl for hunters. This is actually crafted through Inscription. The recipe for this is sold by Lyrendal in Dornagol, but it is BOP, so if you are a hunter without Inscription, you will have to do a work order to get this glyph. Basically, any ability that spawns an eagle for marksman will now spawn an owl instead. Now, I do want to mention this very briefly, and this has got a huge caveat on it, Undercoin. So, as of PTR, Undercoin are currently transferable once again. Now, this is, I believe, the 3rd time this has happened, and it didn't go live last time. I'm just going to say it. Maybe it'll go live. Undercoins might be transferable in 11.17. We'll find out on June 17th whether or not that is true, but as of PTR, yes, you can transfer them across your characters with no penalty. So, just going to throw that in there. Not confirmed. Might not happen. We'll see. So let's finish up the video here with a couple time-limited things. So the Midsummer Fire Festival is getting some updates. This event will run from June 21st until July 5th. And now, we're not sure on the specifics of this. However, there are some new armor and weapon rewards data mined, which do look very, very cool. So not sure if that's going to drop from the boss or from a vendor. Hasn't been testable on PTR, but there are some new rewards, which will be coming for the Midsummer Fire Festival in 11.17. Another event coming shortly after the patch launches on July 1st, running until August 1st, is the Greedy Emissary. So the Greedy Emissary, if you remember, was an event which ran for the Diablo 4 launch, I believe, in Dragonflight. If you remember, there was a treasure goblin which spawned and you killed it and got a bunch of loot, and that is returning in 11.17 with some changes. So the treasure goblin will now spawn every hour on the hour in Stormwind, Orgrimmar, and Dornagol, but it will also be spawning in Undermine from rares. So when you kill a rare, the treasure goblin will spawn from that. But that is also on a 1 hour cooldown, so you can't just keep killing the same rare for it to spawn over and over. You need to wait 1 hour per rare. Now, once the treasure goblin spawns, you obviously just want to kill it, and this will drop some new rewards, including a new item called a Hellcaller chest. Now, inside the first 10 Hellcaller chests you get will have a new currency called Hellstone Shards. Any additional chests after your first 10 of the week will have a low chance of dropping some Hellstone Shards. I'll tell you what these are for in a minute. Also inside these chests, you'll be getting Valor Stones and some random junk items which you can sell, and you can also get Hellcaller chests from weekly quests. Basically, any quest that currently gives a Pinnacle cache will also give a Hellcaller chest in the Greedy Emissary event. These treasure goblins will also drop all of the old Greedy Emissary awards from the previous event, so if you missed any of those, these are going to be dropping once again. There's also going to be a new 3D backpack called the Blood-Wrapped Treasure Bag, as well as a new mount called the Aneris Charger, which is a recolor of Tyrael's Charger. So yeah, this is confirmed to be dropping from the treasure goblins. Not sure on the drop rate. I killed about probably 100 of them, but you do kill a lot more now with obviously them spawning from rares, but yeah, seems to be fairly low, but not too bad, I guess. You also get items from the Treasure Goblin, which are buff items. These are items which go in your inventory and last 2 hours. These are going to give you random buffs. Unfortunately, these do not work in raids, Mythic Plus, or PvP, unfortunately, but outside of the world, it is nice to get a little bit of a buff. Another item you're going to see dropping are elixirs. These are used on the portals just before the treasure goblin spawns. Throwing the elixir in the portal will spawn more treasure goblins, up to 3 treasure goblins per portal, so there's going to be a lot of these running about, and also they add various affixes to the goblins, which make them do different abilities, which are also just going to lag your game out like crazy. Sometimes it gets kind of nuts, and I'm a little worried because I was doing it basically solo on the PTR, and there's going to be a lot more people on live, so yeah, a little bit concerned about the lag there, but I guess we'll see. So that's kind of the mechanics of the treasure goblin, pretty much the same as last time. It spawns, you kill it, you get loot, and you get some new currency called Hellstone Shards, which we'll talk about. So this is a new currency related to the Greedy Emissary event. This is Warbound Transferable with no penalty for transferring, and you'll get a couple of these from doing the intro quest, but then after that you'll get them from Hellcaller chests. As of PTR, you get 6 per your first 10 Hellcaller chests of the week. Then after that it's just a chance, but when it does drop, you get about 5 in your chest, and it drops fairly often. This currency is used on a vendor located in Dornagal, and this is to purchase a recolored version of the HD Tier 2 sets from the Anniversary event, and it costs around 40 Hellstone Shards for one, and obviously you can buy the other classes and things like that. But yeah, these are essentially just recolors of the HD sets from the WoW Anniversary event. So yeah, quite a few rewards, all of those new sets, the mount and the 3D back piece, and obviously all of the old Greedy Emissary rewards if you haven't got those already. So on top of the Greedy Emissary event is also another event happening at the exact same time, so starting on July 1st until August 1st, and that is the Collector's Bounty. Now, we don't really know too much about this. All we know is the description from the calendar, which is foes in legacy dungeons and raids find themselves loaded down with extra treasure. Defeat them once more to collect their bountiful rewards. So some sort of collection event. Doesn't seem like it was tested on PTR. We're not really sure on the details, but it seems like basically stuff's just going to drop more in legacy dungeons, which is great for collecting and stuff like that. So yeah, that'll run at the exact same time as the Greedy Emissary. And that's it. That is patch 11.17, Legacy of Arathor. There's a lot in this patch. Obviously, the Greedy Emissary event coming a little later, but the majority of this is coming on day 1. It's really cool to see Overcharged Delves not being super time-gated. The only real time-gating here is the upgrades for the belt, but as mentioned, it's going to be 3 to 4 weeks to do that, which really isn't that long at all. So super excited for this patch. I think there's some really cool content here. Let me know down below your favorite feature of patch 11.17. I'd love to hear that. And also, if you did like this video, guys, please do leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you want to support me outside of YouTube, I'm also on Patreon, and I'm on Twitter at MrGMYT, and I have a partner Discord channel as well. And as mentioned, I am streaming on twitch.tv/MrGM. Want to see me stream World of Warcraft, War Within, 11.17, 11.2 PTR on the horizon. You can check me out on twitch.tv/MrGM. And with that, guys, I'll see you next time.